Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Weird Way Media.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Chasing Chevy podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Stachiw from the Kulturecast, and one-third of the representatives from Weird Way Media. I'm joined by my two good friends, all the way from the Projection Booth, the movie podcast on the internet that if you're not listening to it, you should be, Mike White.
Chris, will you kiss me on the veranda?
I hope so. And also joining us all the way from Wake Up Heavy, it's a movie podcast about horror movies, so if you're not checking it out, what the fuck are you doing with yourself? Mark Begley.
I like these guys. That's a quote from the movie and just a general statement.
You know, I thought for sure you're going to take the plethora line, so that's why I went to the veranda one, but okay.
I was thinking of Farley, but I don't think I can pull that one off.
And because I rarely get to do the intros, I'm going to give y'all something that you're not expecting. All for each other and all for one. That's what I'm going to leave it at. We are the Three Amigos. I would say at this point, I think Mark Begley is probably the little Nettie Niederlander of the group.
So he's the heart of the whole thing?
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because he's got the best voice.
It's true. Mike, would you prefer to be Steve Martin or Chevy Chase? Because I know which one I fall toward.
I would much rather be Steve Martin because I feel that Chevy Chase has no character in this whole movie.
Yeah,
I know.
He's sidelined in this one.
Which is the biggest shame because he's who I would be, but boy, he just kind of makes faces and drops taco meat at one point. Yes,
isn't it funny just the way he stands there?
And looks, he's got that look, as they would say from Fletch. If you're not aware about what we're talking about just by the plethora of quotes we've already thrown out there, we are going to be talking about 1986's Western comedy film directed by what's going to have to come up at some point during this episode.
It came out last time.
Well, it's coming out this time because there's a very famous story associated with it. With this movie, we're going to be talking about Three Amigos, directed by John Landis, written by Lorne Michaels, Steve Martin, and Randy Newman. Yes, the bug-singing, toy-singing Randy Newman. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this episode of the Chasing Chevy Chase podcast. So the film was, like I said, directed by John Landis, written by Steve Martin, Lorne Michaels, and Randy Newman. It stars the aforementioned Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short as the titular Three Amigos. It also stars Alfonso Arau, who did a lot of more important things than this movie in his life. He sure did. I watched one of them this year, not even realizing it, like Water for Chocolate, which is a really good movie that he directed that his ex-wife wrote. Also, Tony Plana and Patrice Marquez. The film is essentially, it's either Bug's Life with human beings, or it's Tropic Thunder in a Western movie, or I'm trying to think. There was something else that this reminded me of. Just sitting there, I was like, oh my God, it's like all these other movies. But the first one, you have three silent era actors who mistakenly think that they're being asked to go to Santa Poco in Mexico to put on a show for El Guapo, except it turns out El Guapo is a bandolero. I don't know, I don't know what you would call him, like a bandito who is threatening the town, and the Three Amigos get themselves into quite a situation thinking that it's not real, but it is. and hilarity ensues, possibly. Joe Mantegna is here, John Lovitz is here, and even Phil Hartman is here for a cup of coffee in this movie. So I'm going to kick it to you first, Mike. When did you see Three Amigos first? Was this your first time? If it wasn't, when did you see it? And what did you think now watching it for our little Chevy Chase podcast, where we may not even talk about him that much on this episode?
I saw this, it must have been back in December of 86 or January of 87. Movies stuck around at theaters a lot longer back then. Probably was there till, who knows, March or something. I remember not really caring for it back then, and watching it again this time, still kind of don't really care for it right now. There are some good moments to it. I'm excited to talk about the quote unquote lost version of the film, because I think that they did themselves a disservice with some of the cuts that they made to this movie. But yeah, I feel like it gets close, but it really misses the mark. And I think some of the non-characterization of our three leads really is a detriment to it. They really should have bulked up those characters and given them a little bit more character, but more traits to them, so that we can actually tell the three of them apart. How about you, Mark?
Very similar. I saw this in the theater as well, and it was the third Chevy Chase movie I saw in the theater in a row, which I believe I've mentioned. So the last three that we've done, European Vacation, Spies Like Us, and this one.
Three great choices.
This was the third strike, and Chevy would not get me back in the theater until he teamed up with John Carpenter. And I believe that's the reason I saw that movie, which we'll eventually get to a ways down the road. I didn't care for it that much either. I was done going to see his films in the theater at that point. I was a Steve Martin fan as well, because of his appearances on Saturday Night Live, the whole King Tut thing. We had the Wild and Crazy Guy album, which is so amazing.
Yes.
It's one of the best jokes ever in it. The cat joke is probably like top 10 jokes of all time.
What are you talking about when she's like a cat? I get the kitty litter.
No, I'm talking about, I went home with this girl and she showed me her pussy. Like, I'm talking about her cat. You sick people. I won't give away the punchline. People should track it down. But I enjoyed it way more than I expected when I watched it this time. It again came on TV. This is like the third one of these that has been playing on cable, and my wife's like, "Oh, are you going to be watching this one?" And I'm like, "Yes." So I don't want to watch it now, and saw maybe 20 minutes of it that day, and felt the same when I was watching it then. But when I watched it the whole way through this time, I was like, okay, this is one of the better ones for me. And even the direction, comparing this to the last movie, which was also John Landis, and how that one seemed so flat and uninspired, there was a bit more going on in this one as far as his direction, the stunt work, which I know he's big on, because he used to do that prior to directing, and the composition. It just seemed a little bit more like his older stuff. Not quite Blues Brothers, but more effort. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what the difference was, but it was more interesting. And I know that I laughed way more in this one than, the last 3 or 4 that we've watched. So maybe besides Fletch.
How many laughs did you have? Would you say it was a plethora?
Yeah. I marked it down here somewhere. No.
a plethora?
I'm going to start tallying my LOLs.
So, similarly to Fletch, this is a movie I saw during the late 90s, early 2000s on DivX. I remember my folks buying a whole stack of DivXs from Circuit City because they were going out, and we would just watch all of them. I think the funniest thing is my life in the last 6 months has been crazy, so I've been kind of sidelined in Texas. I wasn't expecting to share this experience of rewatching this movie for the first time in like 20 years with my folks. And it cracked me up when we sat down. My dad, after 10 minutes into the movie, goes, "I've never seen this movie before, and it's fucking stupid." And I'm like, and I was like, no. You have seen this movie before, actually multiple times, because we have all watched it together as a family. He goes, "I don't believe you." And I was like, well, I don't think you liked it either. That didn't change with his viewing of this movie. I will say I don't remember much about this movie. What I do remember are a couple specific things, and this is going to date me. I remember downloading the My Little Buttercup version of the song that they sing, which is unequivocally one of the best parts of the entire movie. I remember having that on my computer, and I would listen to it on my iPod once I ended up getting an iPod, because I loved the song. I have the entire song memorized. Again, because I must have either watched this movie a lot or listened to it a lot. The other couple songs in the movie, maybe not so much, but the My Little Buttercup sequence has stuck with me my entire life since I watched this movie for the first time. So rewatching it now as a serious film admirer and critic and an analyst, or whatever the fuck we call ourselves other than podcasters, which now has become a dirty term. I think it is a movie that, and to your point, Mike, it is a movie that by the end of it, I was like, man, what are there, like 90 minutes of this movie on the cutting room floor somewhere? Yes, there are. there are
at least
lots.
At least a half an hour.
At least a half an hour, yeah. And again, like, you know, cowards, you release the Snyder cut, release the Landis cut of Three Amigos, you fucking cowards. I mean, look, I don't know if that would fix the movie's problems, but it would definitely help with what y'all have both alluded to, which is the setup for this movie. I really enjoy. I think the setup for this movie is a pretty good one. 3 silent movie stars who misinterpret what they are needing to, go and do. Entertainers versus outlaws. Just like Bug's Life, just like Tropic Thunder. I enjoyed the meta-ness of that idea. However, I don't think that this movie taps into that because it's being written by 3 people who, for the most part, are known for different kinds of comedy, not tapping into that kind of, not leaning into the meta-ness of it all. And I'm not saying this movie needed to be meta. There are moments of it. But Fran Drescher was in this movie, was being the key phrase.
I think she's still in there for about 5 seconds. Has no lines whatsoever.
Right.
It's just when they're walking through the studio, right? You get that?
I think so.
No, that's one of the parts
That's
that was
just
cut.
the deleted scenes. Oh, okay.
I don't think.
Yeah,
I don't
so you
think they
just
show them
see-
walking through at all.
Okay, you just see the drawing of
It's the drawing of her with
You see the billboard.
poster. Right, that's it. Okay.
Look at me. That also stuck with me from the movie. The Steve Martin doing the look up here, look up. That whole when we started watching the movie, I started reciting it, and the subtitles weren't even on, and I was like, "What is going on here?" So there's a lot of this movie that but I did not see the first time I saw it any more than y'all did the first time y'all saw it, especially given when y'all saw it. So it's one of those movies where unfortunately, this does have to come up for a serious reason, not because we're just like, haha, shovel some more dirt on John Landis's grave, but this is a movie that was directly affected by what John Landis did on the Twilight Zone movie. I mean, it is. The studio did not give him final cut. He got into a massive fight with Chevy Chase on set, into a fist fight, because Chevy Chase took it upon himself to make a joke about it. Make a joke about what John Landis did in his track record with safety with actors. But I overall enjoyed it. I think the parts of the movie that I enjoyed might not have been the parts of the movie I enjoyed the first or second or third time I watched it as a kid, or however many times I saw it as a kid. But I will tell you, it was nice to see Brian Thompson. It was nice to see Alfonso Arau playing, I think, the best part of the movie at this point. And I think the part of the movie that suffers the most is the characterization of the 3 main actors, who that needs to be gotten out of the way in the first 30 minutes of the movie. And they're just like, never mind. They're just going, and they're going to be singing and dancing the whole way. And there's nothing wrong with that in theory, but the movie is so kind of all over the place tonally, and then definitely at the pace that the movie takes. The movie slows down in these parts where we're supposed to understand the characters, and it's like, we know nothing about them. And to both of y'all's points already, the person who is sidelined the most if not almost forgotten entirely in this movie, is Chevy Chase. I think I counted. I think it's like 4 scenes that Chevy Chase really does anything in. And look, I don't think that's a surprise given who wrote the script, but it is surprising to me given that Chevy Chase at the time in 86, still kind of a big deal, clearly losing fans with Mark Begley. And I don't blame you. Like if I had seen this movie in theaters after the last 2 movies, which I enjoyed European Vacation a lot more than y'all did, I understand why this movie did the way that it did then, because it's kind of a failure, but it almost succeeds in spite of how many things are kind of stacked against it. The Landis of it all, the cutting of the movie by the studio. I think it's a fun movie. I laughed a couple times, not a plethora of times, but definitely a couple times. So I don't know. I'm excited to talk with y'all about it, but it's definitely a movie that I remember watching a lot, but watching it now, I'm like, I might come back to it every now and then or watch some of the scenes on YouTube, but there's also a lot of this movie that's just, I'm like, why did you cut this and leave this in the movie? That's this kind of movie where now that we have access to everything else subsequent to the release of the movie, it's kind of hard to not critique the movie based on the decisions they did and did not make. So yeah, I mean, that's where I'm initially at with Three Amigos. So can I ask the question I've been so curious with y'all about when I started watching this movie? Given the history of the movie, which has a pretty long history, especially with the casting, is this the best cast that we could have gotten for this movie? Because the names that were being bandied about at the time may have actually worked better. Look, the characterizations may not have changed, but there were names being, I mean, this was originally a thing for like John Belushi and John Candy. Dan Aykroyd was involved for a moment. Like there were a lot of people whose names were being bandied about. Are these 3, Martin Short, Chevy Chase, and Steve Martin, are they the best people to have this role? And I guess last thing I'll say before I ask the question, I think it is the best Martin Short thing I've seen all year, which ain't fucking hard. All those goddamn remakes of those French movies, Mike, did not help. I was having flashbacks. I was like, not Martin Short again. No.
I didn't think that this project had been around for that long. The script that I read was from July of 85. And I thought that was pretty contemporary. I didn't think this was one of those Spies Like Us things where it had been kicking around for a while. So I was unaware of the other potential cast members. This is interesting because we've seen how far Steve Martin and Martin Short have come at just their friendship and just the working relationship that they have. I mean, the whole Only Murders in the Building thing, but then they even go out on tour together.
They're inseparable at this point.
Yeah. And you get, there were so many things. Like I think Martin Short, even though it was a semi-offensive stereotype, but his role as the wedding planner and father of the bride was pretty darn memorable. That's pretty much what I remember from that movie. And, we've seen Martin and Short, Martin and Martin. They should just build themselves as Martin and Martin, as a couch duo.
Steve Martin Short.
Exactly.
Tall Martin, short Martin.
But they should, they have worked together many times, but I want to say that this might have been the start of the relationship. And I think Ned Niederlander is the most developed character possibly in the entire movie. I think that maybe El Guapo's second to him, but Ned is the only amigo who really has a personality, because I think Steve Martin's character he's kind of venal, he's full of himself, which again, I think that would have been better for Chevy Chase because of Chase's reputation.
Yes.
And just being the guy who's like, listen, I'm the actor. These two are nothing. And I'm the one who wants this and wants that. And I mean, just the way that Steve Martin delivers the, what is it? What does he say to Flugelman? Not on your life or something like that. Yeah. It's like, that doesn't make sense especially because we are just meeting these characters right now. We've only ever seen them singing a song beforehand. So this being our introduction, we're like, why is he even saying that? Why would he even come in and do that to his boss? We don't know what's motivating him. So that's where I'm coming from with this. How about you, Mark?
Well, Yeah, Chris, I think you're referencing the same material that I read where this was a script this was an idea from 1980. He mentions it in a Playboy interview from 1980. And at that point, he was huge. Steve Martin was, the biggest stand-up comedian, selling out stadiums and, stuff like that. And his connection to the Blues Brothers, because he opened for them at the, I don't know if it was the Hollywood, one of the LA venues that they played that they also sold out, and
Feels like Hollywood Bowl.
might have been. Yeah. And then, anyway, the connection that they had, probably inspired that casting choice of them being the other two. I don't know. It's like thinking of John Belushi in, was it the last film where he was supposed to have a part as well?
He was supposed to be the other spy.
Yeah,
and I couldn't see that, and I don't see him as either of these roles either, because they're all vain and vapid and dumb, and I don't see him playing that part. Dan Aykroyd could, although he seems to like to write himself as a genius, but
that's true. Yeah, which we just experienced him as a genius.
He is a genius. His family were ghost hunters, and he loves aliens. Okay, he is a genius, certified.
I mean, he can play dumb as the jerk, but that's a different type of dumb.
Dan Aykroyd's best role is Dragnet. Period. Like, for me, because it taps into Dan Aykroyd, something that I've never seen from him. But yeah, I couldn't see Dan Aykroyd in this movie at all.
The Steve Martin stuff sort of comes from his stand-up, where he plays this really vain, self-important guy. He kind of took on that role, like, I'm the biggest stand-up comedian. And that album that I mentioned earlier, he does that kind of stuff. He talks that way about himself, and, with his actions kind of shows the reverse of that. Oh, maybe this guy isn't so smart. So I kind of bought that from him. Chevy, though, that does ring more true. Maybe that's a little too on the nose, though, for Chevy Chase to play that kind of guy. Because even in that cast interview that's in the stuff that you sent or put in the Dropbox, he can't help himself. Like, what's the best part of this movie or something like that? And he's like, me. And, then plays it off as a joke. And it's like, is that really a joke, though? Or what's the success of this? What can you base the success of this movie on? Whatever the line was that the interviewer asked. And he can't not do it. He can't not hype himself up. And then he also says at the end of that interview, I usually, when we're done with these things, I think they're horrible. And it takes other people to tell me that they're not. And that sort of sums him up for me. Like, he sort of self-sabotages everything that he does. And he doesn't get a chance to do that in this because he has so little to do. And I was sort of grateful for that in a way. Like, oh, well, yeah, we're not going to have much to talk about because he does nothing. And his best line gets cut from the movie too. I thought the one little bit at the end of all those extras where they ask him, Dusty, are you ready? And he's putting on his belt and he just has an exasperated no. And I was like, that was a perfect delivery of that one line. But even that got cut. So it wasn't much to begin with, but it still got cut.
Yeah. Well, Dusty in that script and in those deleted scenes, he's very into his hair and very vain. So it's like, play him as vain then. I think that's why he's not ready, is because he's, worried about his hair. And there's the whole thing at one point, El Guapo and his men bury them up to their necks. And then they're going to pour honey on them and then release the fire ants that are going to eat their flesh. And he's just like, no, I don't want any of this honey on my hair. And he's just like super upset about having the honey anywhere near his hair. And I was like, yeah, there you go. There's something at least. Like, he's the vain one. He's the one that takes forever to get ready or something like that. But yeah, we just lose all of those things.
Why not just have a scene where Chevy Chase gets his hat shot off and that's enough? He's like, you messed up my hair. Like, anything at all. And I forgot the other movie that reminded me of this movie, and it was the one I turned around when I was watching this with my dad, and I said, this is just Galaxy Quest, isn't it? And that's the real one, because it's like, that's the premise of this movie in a nutshell. Galaxy Quest is a much better movie, and so is Tropic Thunder, for that matter. To hear John Landis complain that they, quote, ripped him off, all right, John, sure, whatever. it's not hard to rip off a movie that doesn't do anything very well, because those movies, Tropic Thunder, Bug's Life, and Galaxy Quest, all do this better, because this just feels like it's an idea coming a little too early for people to appreciate it, and they don't take it far enough with, because again, for a comparative, the Ben Stiller character in Tropic Thunder is, if they had made that movie in the 80s and it had been more like this, that would have been the Chevy Chase character, the washed up actor who can't make a hit anymore. Like, that's never been Tom Cruise. Like, I get that is Ben Stiller portraying Tom Cruise in that movie, but he's more akin to like a Chevy Chase in Tropic Thunder. Like, look at all these terrible movies you've made, but at one point you were making great movies. Like, and yeah, for me, you know, again, because this is the Chasing Chevy podcast and not the Short Martin and Tall Martin podcast, I can't help but feel like Chevy Chase might as well have not even been in this damn movie, because there are what, 2 scenes that he really gets. The thing with the bottle of water, which is a great physical comedy scene, don't get me wrong. I mean, it is one of the funnier bits in the movie. Also, the scene where Chevy Chase refused to say a line that would have made his character, quote, seem like a moron, unquote. I hate to tell you this, Chevy, but at least it would have made your character look like something other than nothing. And I guess, you know, and that's the other thing. I guess the scene where El Guapo is kind of walking down the line of his men, and he gets to Chevy Chase, and he, you know, who's in disguise as a bandito, and he's like, and you are Jose, and, you know, we're raping the horses and pillaging the women and trimming the hedges. Like, all of that is really funny, but then going and watching the deleted scenes, a lot of the deleted scenes are funnier than anything that's in the movie. And it's like, studio, wait a second. Most of the time when studios cut stuff out of movies, there's a point and a reason, and I tend to agree. Here, it's like, you robbed this movie of a substantial amount of characterization, especially for Chevy Chase's character, who ends up being the one who's sidelined because Ned Niederlander gets the whole, you know, I'm assuming he's supposed to be like a Mickey Rooney type. You know, he's been like a child.
Former child star, yeah.
Yeah. Little Nettie goes to war. Nettie Knickerbocker.
Little Nettie Knickers.
Yeah, little Nettie Knickers, yeah. And then, yeah, the Steve Martin character is the main character of the movie. Like, you know, except, you know, they do, I think one of the funniest bits in the entire movie undercuts him being the main character right at the end, where he's like, and someday I'll come back. And she just goes, why? And like, that undercuts kind of the boisterousness of his character. But to speak, yeah, just more to the Chevy Chase of it all, because I don't think we're going to be talking about Chevy Chase a whole lot beyond this, just because of the way his character is treated in this movie per the script and then the final cut of the movie. I think for me, the biggest disappointment is that this is a Chevy Chase movie and he isn't in it. And him being in it with those deleted scenes really would have helped. And this movie is a breezy, like, 97 minutes. It's like, or, you know, it's like, right? Like, it's 103 minutes. So, yeah, hour 43. So,
yeah.
I don't know if I want more. I don't know if I want more, though.
It's not more that I want. I want them to recut the movie and put certain things in and take certain things out. There's some movie stuff that's like not needed at all.
There's a lot
Singing Bush and the Invisible Swordsman, which literally makes no fucking sense even now that I'm watching this movie.
So when it comes to that stuff, I mean, they finally figure out that El Guapo is for real, that he's not an actor, and they pretty much tuck their tails between their legs and they run off, and then they come back, and that whole like run off, come back, it happens within seconds as opposed to like
2 scenes.
Yeah, it really should be them going off, and there's more in the script too, where they go off and they like camp and they can see the fires from Santo Poco coming up, and they're just like, oh, this isn't right, and they kind of have a change of heart at that moment. They come back, but they don't have time to have a change of heart in this movie. They do have the line, and again, it's Ned that's doing it, and just like, hey, I'm drawing a line. We need to, do what's right, and this is our chance to do this stuff. That all takes place like right there, and then they come back to the family, and they're like, "Hey, can we get our stuff back?" Basically, actually, I'm sorry. It goes, "Can we get our stuff back?" And then they have the change of heart, and then they go off, and they have that scene where they're singing around the campfire, and you have all the animals and things, and they go, "Okay, go over the list again." And Martin Short's like, "Okay, well, we're going to have to see this singing bush, and then fire our guns up in the air, and then meet the invisible swordsman, and he'll give us the passage to El Guapos." And it's like, where did that come from? Right? Like, where did the list come from? Well, there's this whole thing where they're out riding, and they come across this crazy old man who's at a crossroads, and they're like, "Well, which way do we go?" And then he's the one that gives them the instructions, but they cut that entire scene.
Yeah.
And
It
from
makes no
best,
sense.
it makes no sense at all. And from best I can tell, that is not the Sam Kinison scene, because there's also a Sam Kinison scene that got cut completely out, which wasn't in the script whatsoever. So yeah, you're just like, well, where is this? And to your point, they didn't need that at all. They could have cut completely from them leaving Santo Poco to them arriving at El Guapos. Why is it a quest to find El Guapo's place? Because there's no reason. It's not like he is hidden by magic or something like that.
I guess
And so you're suddenly introducing a singing bush and an invisible swordsman. You're like, where is this coming from? Like, we've gone from reality to like fantasy land, and then we're back to reality again. It's like, are you going to have magic in this or not?
You know what? The campfire scene is the second best campfire scene I've seen this year, behind Night Dreams' campfire scene. No wall of voodoo in this movie, though. I was hoping for a little bit more of that and a little less turtles saying goodbye to people and horses singing.
Mm-hmm.
I like that scene.
I liked it.
It's cute. Yeah.
But it's right. But like, does Three Amigos need a cutesy scene? Like, I that's what I wonder. And you know, there's, when we watch Fletch Lives, there will be a scene in Fletch Lives that scene reminded me of in this movie. But the scene in Fletch Lives is better executed because it's like a 45-second scene. Like, if that, like, it doesn't drag on and drag on and drag on. And then we get the, you know, doctor of it all, where they're like, "Good night, Dusty. Good night, Lucky. Good night, Ned." Like, it's like, "Good night, Dusty," when the turtle talks for whatever reason. Like, it seems like to me the studio took all of the choices that were made and decided the safe choices are the right choices here. And when we've watched the deleted scenes for the movie, it's not like they're, like them saying fuck over and over again. It's just characterizations of the characters that are so badly needed. Because again, I talked about this earlier in the year, and I feel a little not bad now, but I think I maybe gave him too hard of a time. Martin Short's comedic styling, when we talked about those Francis Weber films, right, earlier in the year, the ones that were being remade, that Martin Short apparently was just like, he's the comedic act of the century. Let's put him in all these movies. He is funnier in this movie than he was in anything else I've seen up into this year, period. He is the heart and soul of this movie, like we've already alluded to. And I was shocked by the end of this movie that I was like, man, I really liked Martin Short in this movie over anybody else, over anyone else in the entire movie. And that shouldn't have been the case, not because it's Martin Short, but it should have been all three of these characters are so well characterized that I understand why they're friends, why they're together, why they should have each other's backs. Why, I mean, there should have been a bigger brouhaha when Steve Martin just goes and gets them fired. But there's not. Like, it's such there's so many odd choices in this movie that seem to directly undercut all of the possible good things that this movie could have been doing. And I'm just going to reiterate, because for me, I think it's actually, it verges on Chris Tucker in Fifth Element levels of obnoxiousness. The scene with the singing bush is just, why, what, who, where, and when? Like, what were they thinking? I mean, I know it's Randy Newman getting a chance to cameo in the movie, but it goes nowhere. They literally just go, "Oh, look, the plane again. We'll just follow the plane instead." And it's like, you could have just done that. You've already established that little Nettie knows how to fly. They've already established the male plane with the little balls. Like, they've already established all that. Why do we need to further complicate a movie that had no fantastical realism in it is the only word I would use. I would expect that from an Alfonso Arau film more than I would from a John Landis movie. Like, literally, like Water from Chocolate has fantastical realism in it. And I want to point something out to y'all. I just want to read something from the internet's finest source of information, that being a Wikipedia. So I went and looked up Alfonso Arau because I was like, his name sounds familiar. Oh, that's right. I watched Like Water from Chocolate earlier this year. So on his Wikipedia page, they talk about him being the son of a physician. He was born in Mexico City. He directed all these movies. And then the second sentence on his Wikipedia, and I'm shitting you not, I didn't change it. It's probably been like this for quite some time. The sentence starts with, among a plethora of his roles in his career. I see you people on Wikipedia, and I know what you're doing.
It's beautiful.
He's the best part of this movie other than Martin Short. Alfonso Arau is so good in this movie.
Yes.
His comedy chops are on point. I was so pleasantly surprised. Just the simple, it's a sweater. And then having it wrapped around his shoulders the next scene, and just real, not over the top or anything, but the timing of his deliveries is just perfect. He's great.
He is fantastic. When it comes to going back to the characterization and everything, we talked a lot in the last episode that we did, Spies Like Us, about the road movies and what it was like, the relationship between Bing Crosby and Bob Hope. And I got a lot of the Bob Hope-ness of this whole situation, they think that we are actual gunfighters when we're actually actors type of thing. That feels like something that Bob Hope would get himself caught up in. Having three characters, I think, works well because I'm always talking about the rules of three when it comes to comedy, and the whole thing with the canteens is exactly what I'm talking about, where you have the few drips from Steve Martin, the dust, the sand that actually comes out into Martin Short's mouth, and then Chevy Chase having a full canteen so much that he's gargling and spitting with it and throws it out and there's still water coming out of it. Like, that works really well to have the ABC of it. But I think that might be the only time where you really see that. And I think that there would have been more of that had we had like the more of the opening that was supposed to be there, where, it opens in Santo Poco and we get to see the whole idea of, the banditos coming in and what really motivates them, because we don't get a whole lot of that in this version. It's more like, I can't remember the woman's name. Is it Carmen and Rodrigo going into town and trying to find the men and seeing the movie and then sending the telegram. And then once we cut to the Amigos, we get to see the whole thing with them living in this house together. And that would have given us more opportunity for the 1, 2, 3-ness of it to show us like, well, here's what Ned does when he gets up in the morning. And here's what, Lucky does. And here's what Dusty does. And I love that whole thing too, where each of them is having an affair with the housekeeper. And one goes up and is like, oh, last night was wonderful. Can we meet again? Yes. Come by my room at 11:30. Okay. And then the next one, it was, had such a great time. And I love that each time they go up to her, they grab her by the breasts. So I think it's the third one who grabs her by the breasts and he goes, oh, they're still warm for me, or something like that. It's like, can we do it again? Yes. Can I come by at 3:30? Yeah, let's make it 4. And it's like, so I like that whole like boom, 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 boom. And we get, one character, second character, third character. We get this dichotomy between the three. I mean, it's, obviously very Three Stooges, very Marx Brothers, sorry, Zeppo, just this whole idea of like, what are these three characters doing and how is it different? And we only get it in that one scene, which is a real shame to me.
But we get a triplicate of scenes of Kai Wolf going into the bar saying, my friends will be coming. You'll know them when you see them. He shoots somebody and leaves. Then the Amigos come in, do their, again, I think the one of the best parts of the movie, their My Little Buttercup song and dance routine. And then you have Brian Thompson come in with Norbert Weiser, And it's like, okay, so you've done this 3 times. So you, like you just alluded to, you know the comedic structure here, like what you should be doing. You know already what it is that we're expecting from this kind of thing. And yeah, they just don't ever do it with the Amigos. And well, I guess they do it one other time. They do it where Chevy Chase shoots the invisible swordsman.
Right. Yeah, you get their 3 little chants that they do, and that he's not into it and ends up shooting his gun in the wrong place.
Hilarious.
And I like that little special effect of the swordsman dropping into the dust. I thought that worked well.
And then Martin Short picking up the hand and dropping it. I was like, that's a nice effect.
Yeah.
But did the movie need any of that to get its point across, is kind of where I came down on it. Because not only that, but then we have the introduction of Kai Wolf as the German pilot who knows who little Nettie Niederlander is.
Mm-hmm.
But that ultimately kind of feels like it goes nowhere also.
It doesn't. We never get the explanation. Like, it's weird. In the script, it's a Frenchman. And I don't know why there's a Frenchman that's selling weapons to El Guapo. And then same thing now, like, at least with Germans, I was like, okay, well, tie this somehow into, I'm trying to remember what year this is. Is this 1916? So tie this into, we want to keep America out of this new conflict, out of World War I when that starts. Do something to tie Kaiser Wilhelm to Mexico, and I know that there is a German-Mexican connection, but like, play that up somehow. Give us something rather than these 3 random German dudes are here to give El Guapo weapons or to sell El Guapo weapons. I don't know if it's a gift or if it's a sale. But again, and then, I'm sorry, I don't want to be like Mr. CinemaSins guy, but where do all of the villagers get all those guns at the end of this movie? Because they're running around shooting people like crazy. I'm like, that's like 3 or 4 dozen guns that these folks have. Where did they get those from?
Well, boy, now that you brought it up, the climax of this movie feels like we don't know what to do. Because it's that whole, like, remember what we did in this? And they're like, yeah, all right, so we'll get to see what they did in Amigos. But I like the reveal when El Guapo is down on the ground and he's dying and everybody comes out dressed like the Amigos. I like that reveal. But that whole scene, again, it just feels like Lorne Michaels, Steve Martin, and Randy Newman were sitting in a room going, we've effectively backed ourselves into a corner here. What do we do? And yeah, it doesn't work for me because it logically makes no sense. And I'm not saying that this movie is dictated by logic. I mean, again, this movie has a singing bush and an invisible swordsman in it. But the ending of the movie, the climax of the movie, as it were, is just, it falls flat. A lot of this movie just kind of falls flat. It's not as unfunny as Spies Like Us. I think Spies Like Us, and especially Deal of the Century, were like deeply unfunny movies. Especially Deal of the Century was like deeply unfunny film, almost all the way down. You know what's crazy? I couldn't even tell you a single thing about Deal of the Century. Right now, if you ask me, I know it had Sigourney Weaver and Chevy Chase in it, and Gregory Hines. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't tell you a single thing about that movie at this point. That's how kind of much of a dud it was. There are parts of this movie that have stuck with me forever, so at least there's that. But I think that there are moments in this movie, singular moments in this movie that work, but the script that surrounds the movie kind of collectively really fails the 3 leads. And I don't think having, and I can go through the list of people: John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray and Robin Williams, Rick Moranis, John Candy, Spielberg was involved at one point. Like, I don't think any of that would have saved this movie if the script had been the same. Maybe we would have gotten a better cut of the movie, given that Steven Spielberg has never allegedly helped, incur the on-set disaster that cost the life of 3 people and scarred everybody permanently who worked on the movie for life. But I don't think any other combination of people would have helped. I think the issue with this movie ends up being it needed a couple more passes as a script, and I think they needed to actually make a cut of this movie that wasn't in reaction to John Landis's legal problems. That's such a weird thing to do. Like, we don't trust John Landis anymore, so we're going to do a cut of the movie. Like, why even let him direct then? Why even let him be involved? I mean, again, not to bemoan the John Landis of it all, but if the studio felt that way, why let him do anything? Why let him go and do any amount of anything for your studio if your response is going to be, we're going to take a buzzsaw to an already tenuously working movie and essentially cut it out at the knees because, you know, we've got a bone to pick with John Landis, which I'm not saying is an unfair or fair thing to be the case. It's just, you hurt the movie more than the movie could have. You hurt the movie more than the movie could have ever hurt itself by undercutting how little characterization we're already getting from the lead characters by just taking it away almost entirely.
Well, at least with this one, John Landis didn't feel the need to throw in all of those cameos. You know, the only other director that he's got in here is Alfonso Arau, and he's perfect for the role. I mean, I can't say, yes, exactly. I can't say enough good things about El Guapo. He's just such a fun character and such a fun villain. And I have to say, Jefe is pretty great as well, even though I don't know why his name is Jefe, since that means boss. But
yeah,
well,
it's like
isn't that
to me as well?
Isn't that feels like the joke? I don't, right?
Maybe,
I guess.
I don't know.
Yeah,
but
Tony Plana is great. I mean, again, him and Alfonso Arau share, I think, the film's most famous scene, the plethora scene. Like, again, it's showing up in his Wikipedia, showing up on Alfonso Arau's Wikipedia page. Like, that would be my assumption, that that's the scene that this movie is known for.
Well, and El Guapo has more motivation than any, like, the whole thing of him being sad that it's his 40th birthday and that Jefe is like being counsel to him. And eventually, like, when they announce how old he is, he gives the little look and then it's like, he's 33 years old today. And it's like, yeah, that's something. Like, you guys have more chemistry and more presence in this script and on screen than any of the Amigos do.
Oh, totally. I completely agree. And look, Tony Plana as an actor is great. I don't know. I mean, again, I'm a little younger than y'all, so I don't know how much gaming y'all did in the 90s, but Grim Fandango was a point-and-click adventure game released by LucasArts in the 90s that is, I think, the kind of height of 90s gaming storytelling, and he does the voice of the main character. It's like he's like a skeleton detective. It's an amazing game, and he does an amazing job. I mean, the game got remastered not 5 years ago. Like, that's how well regarded the game is. So getting to hear and see him and his voice in this movie, it's like, oh, okay, it's Manny Calavera from Grim Fandango. But I almost feel like everybody but the Amigos kind of get characterization. Even the Carmen and Rodrigo character are more of character. And we don't spend a whole lot of time with them because, unfortunately, Patrice Martinez is given the thankless of thankless roles in this movie, which is halfway through the movie, she's just going to be kidnapped.
Yeah, it was nice to see Rodrigo. I'm glad that he made it out of that whole weird money-making scheme where he would take Polaroids of lonely women at gas stations and charge them for it. After he did that to Sarah Connor, I was a little like, hey, that's not really fair, kid. But
is that the same actor?
Same actor. I was like, I know you're. Yeah, right. I was like, this guy's so familiar. I
have a question for you, Mike, regarding the script, because I didn't read it, but where else does Fran Drescher pop up? Because that seems like one of the things in mentioning the deleted scenes and all this other stuff keeps coming up, like, oh, Fran Drescher was supposed to be in this movie.
Right. So Fran Drescher had been with them in what was it called? The Singing. It's the same movie title as the fake
Those Darn Amigos?
No, it's the same fake movie that was the title of the movie inside of Singing in the Rain that they talk about.
Right.
Something about the Singing Cavalier, something like that. But yeah, so she was in that movie with them. They didn't like her very much. You know, there is that part in the deleted scenes where they're calling her a cow, but Flugelman is trying to make her into the next big thing. And I don't think you really get that. Again, like, there's even more to that whole scene where it starts off with Flugelman talking about streamlining and like, we're going to streamline this, we're going to streamline that. And he goes through all this stuff. And then there's a line, I don't think it made it to the DVD, where he screams, "Your asses have been streamlined." It's like all about cost cutting stuff. So he's got the hots for the Fran Drescher character. And when they start to make fun of her, that's kind of the last straw for him. And when he kicks out the Amigos from their house, he actually gives the house to her character. And so when they go through, when they come back and they're like, hey, butler guy, James, I think it might be, like, you've been with us for so long. And then even little Nettie's like, oh, we've been friends since I was a little boy, basically. And it's just like, yeah, sorry, nothing I can do. And I think there's a little bit more Fran Drescher in that sequence. And then that's it. She doesn't come back at all.
Okay, she doesn't show up. Oh, okay.
No.
See, that sort of makes sense to me to cut all that out, because the studio executive room scene to me was dragging, even though I like all three of those guys. And it reminded me so much of Barton Fink with Tony Shalhoub, John Polito, and Michael Lerner in a room together. I was like, I'm getting the same vibes from this, especially from John Lovitz and Phil Hartman kind of doing those 30s, voices and stuff. And
which Lovitz do really love to do. Yeah. So did Phil Hartman. Yeah.
Phil Hartman's voice is so and you know what? I appreciate where you're coming from, Mark, but I actually like that scene because of Joe Mantegna. Just like I find
doing the scenery.
Yeah. Every time I hear his voice now, I can think of his Fat Tony from The Simpsons. Yeah. That's all I can think of.
Take a look at his IMDb page. His profile picture is pretty funny.
Have you seen Phil Hartman's Wikipedia profile on Wikipedia? The photo that they have of him, it makes him look like he's like a pimp. Like he's like a private eye. I guess he played a character named Chick Hazard, Private Eye, in the late 70s, and he is dappered up. He's got some, as the kids are saying today, some real drip going on. Phil Hartman does. I mean, every time I see Phil Hartman in anything, I just get sad. I really do. It makes me so sad.
I watched So I Married an Axe Murderer a while back, but his whole Alcatraz scene is just amazing. And then you're at the end, you're just like, oh, man.
Right. Because he should still be here with us. Like, it's a shame because, John Lovitz and Phil Hartman kind of do make an impression in that scene, even if kind of in the position you're in, Mark, it kind of drags on a little bit.
They make an impression even in the shortened version that we get. Yeah. And that's why I was thinking of, oh man, this is reminding me of one of my favorite movies I need to watch again. But,
which is, such a good thing to do when you're watching a movie like this.
Well, it wasn't a matter of like, I'd rather be watching it. It was just, I'm getting Barton Fink vibes from this little one scene with these three studio execs in this room. And the sycophants that John Lovitz and Phil Hartman are playing are like the John Polito character. I just assumed that Fran Drescher would keep popping up in the script for some reason. Like, for some reason, she's in Santa Poco too, or she gets wind that they're getting 100,000 pesos and she's going to try and get in on it. But if it's just stuff at the beginning, I kind of understand why it's not there. It does kind of confuse things when you see the billboard and you go, that face really looks familiar.
And it's Steve Martin standing in front of it for like 3 minutes making noises.
If I hadn't read prior that she was supposed to have been in it, I don't know that I would have eventually made the connection. Oh, that's Fran Drescher's face. I think I just would have sat there and gone, that picture of that person looks really familiar to me for some reason.
Right.
But anyway.
Yeah, the other scene, I mentioned the Sam Kinison bit. That was not in the script, and that was very much a freestanding scene, so it kind of makes sense that it's gone. Apparently, he plays some sort of crazed mountain man who's like covered in chicken feathers and blood and mud, and he's got 2 hatchets in his hand, and they end up having to fight him and kill him. And then while he's dying, he has this very emotional death scene where he starts pulling out pictures of his family and starts talking about how he'll never see them again, and suddenly makes this crazed mountain man into like a real human being, and they end up feeling very guilty for killing him. yeah, it made sense that they cut that because it really wouldn't have anything to anything. But I love Sam Kinison, so I probably would have been a big fan of that part of it.
Me too. Yeah. And
Maybe
I
that's where they get the list from in this version.
Right. Yeah. Rather than the man at the crossroads.
And that's, the Sam Kinison stuff, again, having not known about that prior to watching it this time, I think it needed something like that. Like, again, because we have the Three Amigos by the end of the movie just murdering people.
Mm-hmm.
Literally. Like, we go from guys with fake guns riding around on horses. And one of my favorite shots in the movie is they keep doing these close-up shots as they're kind of riding their horses around. And there's one where Martin Short is taking the gun and switching it between his hands, which is one of the greatest shots in the entire movie. But I think the stuff was Cam Sinison.
Cam Sinison, yes. His evil brother.
Probably what he decided to do after being a preacher would have been a sin. But I think it actually could have helped get the characters to the point where they're like, well, we've done it once now. We might have to do it again. We feel bad about doing it here, but I mean, like, literally they murder El Guapo. Like, by the end of the movie, the Three Amigos are murdering people.
They're saving the town. They're saving the town
and murdering people. I know they're saving the town, but they get to the point where they start.
El Guapo isn't without sin in this.
No, that's not what I'm getting at. It's more when we see the character of El Guapo, we understand that he's a bandito. When we have the Three Amigos and they start killing people, the movie doesn't do anything about it. It's just, it's odd because up until that point in the movie, they have not shot and killed anyone. And then we have, I believe it's Martin Short kills the first person in the movie. He kills the German, which I think that whole scene is great where Kai Wolf's like, you are the great Niederlander. And he's just like, and he's like, but then I read about the trick shots and the cinematography and the camera work. And it's like, okay, I like this because, again, it kind of feeds into what this movie is really about. Like, these three actors getting themselves in over their heads, but he fucking kills that guy. he straight up murders him.
Well, and Chevy Chase won't even hit the one guy over the head. He's so hesitant to do any sort of violence. So, yeah, it should be a much bigger moment when they actually have to take a human life in the name of, their mission.
Right, because they've never had to do it before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of expected something to intervene and take the German out. Like Martin Short wouldn't actually be the one to do it because he couldn't even hold the gun up, like pulls him to the ground when he tries to pick it up. And not remembering the movie.
Bit of physical comedy. I love when he does.
He sells it. Yeah, he sells it for sure.
Well, and I think about, again, to go back to some of these other kinds of movies that John Landis, quote, said ripped off Three Amigos, unquote, even though John Landis didn't write the script for this movie. Galaxy Quest, they are shooting at the other aliens and killing them. So, again, not really given a choice. In Bug's Life, the bugs don't kill anybody. The bird ends up killing Hopper at the end. And in Tropic Thunder, I don't think they kill anybody in Tropic Thunder either. I mean, the whole thing towards the end of the movie is that their guns have blanks in them. Like, that's the whole thing. It's like the scene in this movie where they're doing the back and forth with the gun. Like, those guns have blanks in them. And then they're like, oh my God, you shot me. They're using real bullets. Like, in this movie, they just have them killing people. And I was like, that's kind of a weird tonal shift that the movie just kind of goes, like you said, Mark, they're saving Santa Poco, so it's okay. It's like, these guys are actors and they're murdering people. Like,
yeah.
In 1916, mind you, this isn't like 1840.
I don't know. I guess I'm struggling with the semantics of the term murder. Maybe
they are killing people. They're not pre-planning these things. I mean, Dusty throws that rock at the guy and he ends up falling off the building. It doesn't feel like a premeditated thing. It's almost an accident.
Well, it is an act. Yeah, it's totally accidental that he hit him in the head enough and hard enough to knock him out. But
I guess so. I guess we're going with if you're being shot at, it's not murder. Okay. I mean, fair. all right. If that's where we're coming down on it,
Your
fine.
life
They're
is
just
being
killing
threatened.
people. They're just killing people. But again, these guys ostensibly, unless there's a Fatty Arbuckle situation going on here, they haven't killed anybody up until this point in their lives. And I guess technically the first person to kill anyone in this movie is Chevy Chase killing the Invisible Swordsman.
That's true. Yes.
And they're just
So
kinda like,
by
"Oh,
that
he's
point,
dead."
he's already killed 2 people, so he really shouldn't hesitate to hit the guy in the head with the butt of his gun. Yes, now he should have a taste for blood.
Right.
But he definitely doesn't have a taste for Mexican food, because that might be the one thing that they make Chevy Chase do in this movie more than we've seen in a while, which is the whole, I guess, what are we calling, like, the Chevy Chase of it all? Like, the kind of, like, pratfally, falling over himself, like, you know, there's a scene where he's playing the guitar and he's just strumming it like a ding dong, like, or the thing with the, you know, he doesn't know how to fold the end of a tortilla up. So he's like, you got anything other than Mexican food? That's what I expect from Chevy Chase. However, I don't know the character of Dusty Bottoms well enough to understand that this is his characterization at all. I'm just more or less in most of the scenes, I'm like, oh, that's just Chevy Chase doing the Chevy Chase thing that I expect him to do anyways.
Yeah, I'm a little. These 3 actors in Los Angeles in 1916 are going to know about Mexican food.
Yeah.
So I call bullshit on that.
Yeah.
They've had a
that's
taco
very
in their
true.
life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I almost wonder if Chevy Chase, speaking of physical comedy, if he would have been better off in that whole contraption that they put Steve Martin in, where he's like pulling the different counterweights and all that and getting up to the wheel and turning that thing so he can actually get the keys and that. I mean, that's very, very physical comedy. And of course, Steve Martin does it beautifully, but I wonder with Chevy Chase having his specialty in physical comedy, if that would have been a smarter choice.
I think it would have been. I mean, as much as I like the scene with Chevy Chase that we get where he's, you know, again, the raping of the horses and everything, or running horses through the Vatican, like that's, you know, that's kind of what it reminded me of. But I don't see why Steve Martin couldn't have done that. I guess maybe because Steve Martin with his white hair would have been less obvious or more obvious than Chevy Chase is, standing there as just a white guy among this crew of like clearly they put out a call to all vaguely Hispanic looking actors in this movie. They're just like, everybody come on down for Three Amigos. We're filming out in Arizona, guys. Like,
I'm just so glad that Fred Asparagus heard that call and became the bartender in here.
He's the
I would have
best.
loved to have had more of that little town and the banditos from there, especially Fred Asparagus.
He's the best part of the movie, and when he talks, it's like beer.
Oh, it's so good. Fattenings.
Fattenings. Yeah. My Little Buttercup. All of that. He's so good in this movie. And he's in what, three scenes? Four scenes. Because Carmen goes in, and then we get the triplicate of scenes with the 3 of them. He's great. Fattenings. That's he really is. He really is. I think, like, again, he's a standout in this movie. And again, the My Little Buttercup scene, is, I think it, for me, is like the moment in the movie where I'm like, this, if the movie could have maintained this level of comedy and kind of ridiculousness and fish out of waterness, I think there may have been something there, because we really get to see the 3 of them interacting in a way that's meaningful. But yeah, the movie just doesn't really seem interested in establishing their relationship as characters. It's more just like, you know who they are. It's like, do we? Because that's the other question. Like, obviously, Martin Short is supposed to be Mickey Rooney. Steve Martin and Chevy Chase are meant to be who? Like, who are their facsimiles? Or are there direct facsimiles? Like, Martin Short is so clearly Mickey Rooney. Like, again, it's not just the height of it all, but it's the whole, like, characterization of him being a child actor. And, you know, and the German says, you know, I remember when you were little Nettie Knickers. Like, it's stuff like that makes me think, like, okay, like, there was, you know, there should have been more. Like, you know, there's another great scene in the movie is when the 3 of them are in bed together, right when they get to Santa Poco, and like, what are you going to do with your share of the money? And again, Martin Short, being the heart and soul of the movie, goes, I'm going to open up a home for orphan children. And then Steve Martin and Chevy Chase go, oh yeah, we're going to do that first. Obviously. Like, where was that in the movie? Like, that one scene is funnier than large swaths of this movie are, because it's just, just having the three of them on screen together is not enough.
Well, and I don't think that, they don't realize how little money 100,000 pesos is, it's maybe $10,000. It's not that much, guys. And that's the other thing that I like, that they're so stupid that they don't know how much money 100,000 pesos is, and they don't know the word infamous. So that's really what sets them off to say, like, yes, he's so famous, he's infamous.
And I like, if you have the subtitles on, it goes in hyphen famous in the subtitles, and it's like, okay, the movie, I don't know, the movie when it hits its notes correctly, I think it does really sing, but so much of this movie just feels like what we got on the cutting room floor should have been in the movie, and the movie still, even with those things in it, is still kind of a mess. Because I think for large portions of this movie, it's also not funny. Like, there are plenty of moments to laugh. I mean, the plethora scene, the My Little Buttercup scene, there are some scenes between the scene with the water, the canteens are funny, but there's a lot of this movie where it's just kind of ambling along, and it's like, hey, we need to take a moment to have them sing out in the desert. And it's like, was this one, Randy Newman was contractually obligated to write 3 songs for the movie, so we have to have them singing Blue Shadows on the Trail. I wanted to ask y'all, the Randy Newman of it all, what do y'all think of the music, the musical numbers in the movie? Because it also is halfway a musical. At least it has 3 musical numbers.
Yeah, which fits for the type of movies that the Amigos themselves were probably making. And I think if we had because we get the scene of the movie in the movie theater, I think them singing at the beginning was a mistake. Like, had we had that be, like, I know it's so typical, but like, have them do their song number and then have somebody go, all right, cut, print, and then realize that we're watching a movie. But yeah, and before I forget, by the way, 100,000 Mexican pesos, at least right now, today, the day we're recording this, $4,907 US. So I don't know about 1916. I don't imagine that the peso was incredibly strong in 1916, but I just wanted to let you guys know.
I mean, I'd take it still now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, $5,000 is $5,000. $20 is $20.
$20 is $20. Yeah. If there is a town in need right now in Mexico, the Three Amigos of this podcast will be there, set up with our podcast, with our microphone.
I never realized how funny the Amigos salute is because
they do it once.
No, they do it. Yeah, they do it at 3 at least.
Yeah, but they don't do it at the very end, which is a weird thing. But when they do it the very first time, when they're sitting on the horses, you don't get the real thrust, the pelvic thrust, which really drives you insane. But you get them turning their head and coughing. I didn't realize that it was like a hernia thing.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the few things I remember from my initial viewing of the film is the Three Amigos salute.
Oh, yeah.
And their dance.
Which I don't think they would have been allowed to do in the movies back then, but it was pre-code. It was pre-code.
I like the dance that the three of them do, where they're kind of going around each other in a circle.
So good.
My folks have some friends that live here, and they won their Halloween costume contest that they do with their friends this year because the three of them dressed up as the Three Amigos, and they did the dance and everything. And my parents are like, "What is that from?" And I was like, well, if I'm here long enough, you'll find out. I love, you know what? I will say I love their costumes. Can we just talk about their costumes for a moment? Like, talk about 3 great costume choices for them with each hat kind of has a different level of embroidery on it to signify who is who. Like, they have their little cravats and everything. Like, I love their costumes in this movie. I love the look of the movie, which I think, obviously John Landis does have something to do with that, but I appreciate the movie and the way it looks. I just wish, I don't know. I just wish there was more to it, because it just seems like so much of it is just not where I want it to be as a movie. But I remember, I guess, enjoying it so much as a kid that I probably overlooked or just kind of zoned out during the parts of the movie that kind of drag on, which I would say the middle half, like the middle quarter of this movie, or I guess middle half of this movie, is just kind of drags. Once we get to El Guapo's hideout, that's when I think the movie kind of picks back up. But in between them leaving Santa Poco to go find El Guapo's hideout. And even a little bit before that, it's just like checking my watch. Like, let's get to it. Like, stop stalling with this stuff that really serves no purpose here.
Mm-hmm. But going back to your question as far as Randy Newman, so Randy Newman these days, I think for a lot of people is kind of a joke. The whole thing of like, doing all the Toy Story stuff and just being kind of this odd frog-like looking guy and everything. But
frog-like?
Yeah.
I get it.
Okay, good. I'm glad you get it. But like,
he loves LA, Mike. How could you?
And that's the other thing. It's like him having a hit song like I Love LA is the same kind of thing that like, it kind of reminds me of like Hot, Hot, Hot by Buster Poindexter, where you go like, oh yeah, David Johansen is a real like force. He's an actual talent. And like Randy Newman is a real force. He is the real talent. Like I love his early stuff. I mean, I love the whole Nilsson's Things Newman album, which is pretty cool that it's 1970 and you've got Nilsson doing an entire album of Randy Newman songs and Newman's on the album. When we talked about Ragtime forever ago, that's all Randy Newman, which you would never know that's not that beep, beep, bop, bop, bop type of Randy Newman thing that you've got. Yeah, I love the guy. And I love that he's got this relationship with Steve Martin because he also did the Parenthood soundtrack as well. It's just like he's got a lot of talent, does a great songwriter, and I don't think that necessarily shines in this film, but I was all for the 3 songs that they have in here.
I agree. I mean, as much as Will Sasso does a great Randy Newman now,
like that's pretty much all I think of when 3 comes up anymore.
And a bug. I like bugs. I'm going to melt down my gold records and go for tacos. That's all I can think about Randy Newman now is Will Sasso's impersonation of Randy Newman, unfortunately. To your point, Mark, like, I didn't know he looked like a frog, though. Now I'm going to have to...
Yeah. As he gets older, he gets more frog-like,
Yeah, I get it.
Amphibious Randy Newman.
Yeah, he used to be a big deal.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was a big deal in the 90s. I mean, You've Got a Friend in Me. Jesus, talk about a song that is seared into the memory of many a person my age. I mean, good God. And, and not so much the Bug's Life song, but definitely, all the music in Toy Story is Randy Newman. It's not just You've Got a Friend in Me. I mean, there's like a couple Randy Newman songs in that movie.
And then he did Monsters, Inc. as well.
Right. Oh my God.
Well, yeah, he's done all of the soundtracks for Monsters films because he did Monsters University, even did some Cars, and then all of the Toy Stories. It's like, okay, but it's great. He probably made more money from You've Got a Friend in Me than Short People, I Love LA, and all of his filmography before that.
Short People, a song that I heard for the first time in Penelope Spheeris' Little Rascals. I actually love Randy Newman's music for the most part, but when it comes to his stuff in movies, like it all kind of sounds the same. Like he's, I mean, to your point about Ragtime, Mike, like that might be the one thing of his I've seen where I'm like, this is Randy Newman. Like, right. Everything else is like,
think that.
Yeah. Everything else really just has like, it's a piano thing with Randy Newman singing. And look, you can imagine Randy Newman singing My Little Buttercup instead of, Steve Martin and Martin Short. Like you can hear what it would sound like if Randy Newman was singing it. So I like Randy Newman in this. I think other than him playing the singing bush, I think his songs add a little something to further reinforce like the time and the place of this movie and like when this movie is taking place in kind of 1916. It nails those kind of moments, I think, rather well. But I don't think we needed 3 songs. I think we probably should have only stuck with the 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said though, I think that's what those Amigos movies would have been like, and I think that you made that remark about casting goes out to all of the vaguely Latino looking actors. I like that Steve Martin and Martin Short and Chevy Chase could not be less Latino, and that they're supposed to be playing these 3 wealthy landowners. I mean, it's basically supposed to be like 3 Zorros combined.
Right. Oh yeah. Pretty much. But, Zorro used a sword.
At least they're not in brownface in this movie.
That's true. Yeah. At least they weren't doing like the accents we were planning on doing this entire episode. Oh, that's Steve Martin. He's so funny.
He's a funny guy. I like him a lot. I mean, mine is just Speedy Gonzalez, which
That's pretty much me too.
I believe has been canceled. If not eaten at this point. So
I'm okay with Speedy Gonzalez still being around. It was Pepe Le Pew that I always had problems with. That rapist Pepe Le Pew.
It wasn't the French accent. It was the whole being a sexual predator skunk.
Yes. He was like, oh, you think that Harvey Weinstein is bad? Look out for me.
As you say in France, no means yes, and yes means whatever I want it to be. It's like,
my little buttercup.
Yeah, what is God? Ugh. Well, yeah, no, Speedy Gonzalez. I mean, again, like that's a lot of like the characterization of the Hispanic characters in this movie are a very ay. There's a lot of that in this movie, and I don't know. I guess for me, it's not that I'm offended or not. I was reading an article on on just a cursory Google search of like, what do other people think of this movie, and have other people sat down and reappraised it. And one of the things I read was like, is this a problematic movie? And I'm like, I mean,
it's less than I was expecting.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
It is a white savior movie. I will say it is a triple white savior movie, but they're also fucking morons. Like, so that's where it kind of like that undercuts the white savior of it all. But at the same time, I've said this before on other podcasts, in the narrative of Harry Potter, he's the fucking biggest idiot of them all. So, it's not like Luke Skywalker, who is kind of not an idiot. Like, sometimes the white saviors are dumb and prevail in the end, which I'm not sure actually helps anything. I think it might actually make it worse if it's like, oh, so these guys just fumble and bumble their way to success. Like, the people of Santa Poco, there were so many of them, they could have just pushed the Banditos back on their own. Like, they didn't need the help of the Amigos or the futzing around of the Amigos, I guess.
I mean, if they had all those guns.
Right. Exactly. They taught them how to do it by themselves.
Right.
As well as dozens of guns. Yeah, the rape part of it, because there's implied rape that's going to happen, even though he says if she doesn't open her pedal to me, I'll kill her. So I'm like, oh boy. I do like that whole thing about, do you know what foreplay is? No. Well, good. Neither does El Guapo. I like that part. And there's a whole lot more for that actress in the script as well. And especially people talking about that actress, that character in the script, because Hefe has the hots for her and he's trying to basically be like, well, if you're going to be going with Carmen, does that mean that your other girlfriend is available? You think I could maybe go out with her? And then El Guapo has to do this whole like, would you wear my pants if I wasn't wearing them? Would you eat my food if I wasn't eating it? It's like, well, going out with her is just as much sense as wearing my pants. You wouldn't want to do that. And it's like, okay, it's a strained metaphor, but like, oh, okay, that's interesting. That would have been an interesting scene, but unfortunately, that's not it. Not in there. Who is that? Lodia Ramos as her, right?
Yep.
Yeah, she's been in a ton of stuff.
I guess the other thing for me, and this is just a minor quibble, it definitely also feels like an HBO movie.
Well, that makes sense.
Right?
I was surprised to see that, actually.
Yeah, it feels like an HBO movie. And if you've seen HBO movies before, you know what we mean. It definitely there's a little bit of that to this movie that you just can't get away from. But hey, the music by Elmer Bernstein's pretty great. I mean, I think the music by Elmer Bernstein is fantastic in this movie. Not surprising, it's Elmer Bernstein, so...
Well, yeah, and he and Landis have been working together for years. I can't remember if he did anything before Animal House, but that score for Animal House is pretty classic. He even just did The Spies Like Us with him. So yeah, it's interesting that they have this relationship over all these years and continues to work. At least with this film, I don't know how much longer Bernstein's going to be alive for Landis to use.
Well, I don't think he used him in Coming to America because that was Niles Rodgers. So, a little bit of a change there, as one might say.
Big change.
Big change.
Yeah, I wondered why, because I've seen Niles Rodgers talking about Coming to America before, and I didn't realize that he had worked for him. So I'm like, oh, okay, or had done that song.
So Elmer Bernstein worked with John Landis again on Oscar.
Okay.
And then beyond that, I'm not sure he worked with him again.
And I'm curious because Bernstein, I want to say, wrote the theme for Magnificent Seven. So I'm surprised there wasn't a little Magnificent Seven in there with this, because this is very Magnificent Seven. They even say that in that interview. And then they're like, how they're like, shh, we don't want to get sued. I'm like, come on, guys.
But in John Landis's 1998 film Susan's Plan, he works with Paul Bernstein, who is Elmer Bernstein's son. So a film I didn't even know existed and never heard of until right now. So
yeah, yes, he does the God theme. The when the clouds part in the Blues Brothers and the light shines down on Jake.
Elmer Bernstein's great. I mean, there are parts of this movie that work. I don't know if I will revisit this movie anytime soon, if ever again. But rewatching it for this, it definitely made me nostalgic for the things I remember enjoying, but it also pointed out and kind of reinforced to me, like, if we're doing a Chevy Chase podcast, which we are, this is, I think, the first time of the things that we've seen with Chevy Chase where he is really, 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 really sidelined. That is a disappointment to me, because he had the opportunity to really stand out in this movie. And it honestly feels like this is the beginning of him just going, like, I'm either going to be the main character or I don't care. And like, because, after this, we get some Caddyshack 2, we get Funny Farm, Fletch Lives, Christmas Vacation. So things that he's the lead in again. And, maybe he just doesn't like to share the screen with other people that are funnier or as funny as him. Because I don't know, Martin Short and Steve Martin, like we've already alluded to, still kicking it, still doing their thing, still, murder, what's it called? Only Murders in the Building. Yeah. All of that. Like, they're still cashing Hulu checks. They're working with Selena Gomez. I've seen what Chevy Chase is up to. He seems like he's doing all right. He went to the Louisville Slugger bat place and had a bat made. I don't know if you guys saw that on Facebook.
Are you stalking him on Instagram?
It's just
stalk him on Instagram.
It was just on Facebook or something. I saw it and I was like, what is going on?
I wouldn't say I was disappointed more than I was surprised at how much he was sidelined, considering he gets top billing on the poster or on the
film itself.
It's alphabetical order for the 3 stars. So top billing in the movie credits, but
it should have been Steve Martin.
It's a Steve Martin vehicle, so
yeah. Which is weird that it's not more of a 3-person film.
I wonder
the title of the movie.
Maybe you can speak to this, Mike. Does it seem there's a disparity between the script and the finished film? I wonder if, maybe Landis had a beef. I mean, I know they had a beef, but maybe some of it ended up on the cutting room floor.
It doesn't necessarily feel like it. It feels like it's pretty well distributed and that there's nothing specifically of Dusty that's on the cutting room floor. And it takes me a minute to remember which character is which, just because other than Ned, Lucky and Dusty go
right.
They're too similar. And it's actually, I want to say it's Lester in the script. It's not Dusty, it's Lester. So yeah, I'm trying to remember what his last name is, because there is a moment where
Bottoms.
Thank you,
Dusty Bottoms.
I prefer my bottoms clean, not dusty.
Right. Though it is interesting because there is a thing where when they go to the movie theater, it's there's a close up of Ned Niederlander, a close up of Lester, a close up of Lucky Day. So it's like Lester doesn't get a last name in the script.
Even more sidelined as a character.
Yeah. And that's like right in the first few pages of the script, of course. So yeah, every time they talk about Carmen's father, it drives me a little crazy because they call him Father Sanchez the whole way through. And I just kept thinking, is this a priest?
How many times I've said Father Malone around people and people go, a priest? And I'm like, oh God, let me explain this again. One more time for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I also felt a little bad for Carmen's sisters in here because they look and dress so similarly to me that I have a hard time. There were a couple times where I was just like, oh, I guess all three of them are in love with Carmen. And I was like, wait, no, that's a different actress. It's a different actress, different person, different character. Okay. And that's something that they don't really play up on either, is the love affair between, each amigo gets the different sister, basically.
But the one that
someone.
Yes, exactly.
Which one's that?
the one that Martin Short is with, we don't even see her until the end of the movie.
Yeah,
right.
It's great though. Again, he's he's like the golden child.
He's the heart of the film.
It's got the best voice. He's got the most. What is it? The orphan he's going to take care of.
Oh yeah, he's the only one with the heart.
Yeah. But yeah, John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, and Rick Moranis. Like, can you imagine that as the cast? Just those three. What a strange. I think Rick Moranis as Ned Niederlander could have totally worked, if not worked
I can see
better.
that.
If worked better, even. Like,
I can't see Belushi in any of the roles, though. That's the thing that always kind of.
Yeah.
They keep saying this about John Belushi being in these movies, and I don't see him in these movies at all.
No, his energy was so specific. He was such a specific kind of comedian.
I don't see him playing a dummy. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it would have been a very strange thing. And it would, we've talked about Randy Newman, we've talked about Steve Martin, but we haven't talked about that Lorne Michaels was the third writer on here.
Yeah.
And he, before he had Saturday Night Live, he was a comedy writer, but it is interesting that he's one of the main three credited for this one.
And a weird credit thing too. There's no and or ampersand between any of the names. It's just those three names, just like on top of each other, which I found interesting. You don't usually see that.
Yeah.
Or maybe you do. I don't know.
I love that the script that I found has all these notes all over it. Like, it'll have like several servants pass, including Katrina, the maid, James, the butler. And then they'll have like a little arrow and it says, she works for the Three Amigos in their mansion provided by their studio, small role. And then like, they'll have like different things where it's like medium-sized role, large role, small role, like for pretty much every character that they introduce into it.
Why?
I guess I don't know whose script this was. Like there are initials at the very beginning. Hold on. Let me see. On the very second page. No, it just says CABS 11. So I don't know whose script this was, but I imagine it was somebody, either a casting agent or like, is it even has like little, Father Sanchez, Carmen's father, late 40s to early 50s. And then we'll go down to Rodrigo, say co-star, and then 14-year-old son, Father Sanchez's nice featured role. So I imagine that
that sounds like casting notes.
Yeah, exactly. Like Mama Sanchez, late 40s, early 50s, nice featured role.
Yeah,
so
interesting.
But hey, Steve Martin did his own lasso tricks.
Yeah,
of course.
Super talented.
Disneyland's own. Steve Martin is one of those actors who, like, he's still kicking it. And not like alive, like he's kicking it, isn't like still doing good work, like, and good for him. Like, I don't know. He seems like a genuine guy, seems like a very unproblematic. I know I hate that word, as we all do, but like, seems like a genuine guy, seems like a very, down to earth dude.
Check out the documentary on him that's on Apple TV right now. It's pretty interesting. He's got some issues, but I think he's spent a lifetime burying them. It's a very interesting person. All three of them, though, have that like triple threat kind of talent where you sort of hate them. Like, because they're all musical. They can all play instruments, I believe, and sing fairly well and act and do all this other stuff. I mean, I think Steve Martin's a painter as well. And
writes a ton, has written books, has written screenplays. Yeah. It's like, can you be bad at something, please?
Right. Can I have some of that, please?
Well, Martin Short was in a couple of those Francis Weber movies, and he was
they're not all.
The critically acclaimed, and I watched it last night with my folks, Jungle to Jungle.
Oh, good Lord.
Oh, good Lord is right.
They've all had duds. I mean,
But
we're milling through one of those actors' duds as we go through this podcast. So,
but Martin Short actually ends up being kind of the best part of Jungle to Jungle, which I found amusing because he plays a very like harried father of two character that's kind of neurotic in that movie. And I'm like, oh, this kind of works for Martin Short. So I don't know. I'm coming around more on Martin Short the more stuff of his I watch. And I almost feel kind of icky to say this, but some of his stuff that he's been doing as Jiminy Glick recently is actually really funny.
It is, yeah.
It's like
want to see the
really funny.
If you want to see the funniest thing he has ever done in his life, check out the synchronized swimming bit from Saturday Night Live.
Oh, I've seen it. I know what you're talking about.
So good.
Yeah.
Hey, you. I know you. I know you. What?
I'm not angry.
The other one was, do you remember Jackie Rogers Jr.'s $100,000 jackpot wad? That's the one where it was like pyramid, but it was
great title.
Yeah, it was Christopher Guest as this Indian guy, and then Billy Crystal as Sammy Davis Jr. So they're partners, and then you had Mary Gross as a very neurotic woman, and she was partnered with Jim Belushi as Bob Keeshan, aka Captain Kangaroo, and they basically play a game of pyramid. It is so freaking funny. That's another fantastic skit, and I don't know who Jackie Rogers is, so for Martin Short doing Jackie Rogers Jr., I don't understand the reference, but he is amazing in that as well.
What about Ed Grimley?
Ed Grimley was fucking amazing. I used to love Ed Grimley, especially on SCTV. So good. Yeah.
I have an Ed Grimley doll sitting on my shelf at home that
I'm just say.
Or his slimy lawyer character.
Oh, yeah. What was that guy's name? Ned. Was that Ned? What's his name? Yeah, he was great with that.
The smoking, the cigarette.
And that whole thing that I found out that he was wasn't he making fun of the costume designer for Saturday Night Live by doing that character? Like, I didn't say that. Why do you think I said that? Did I say that? Oh my God, so good.
Yeah,
So
I think I'm coming around on Martin Short, but I also think that what I was exposed to earlier this year may not have helped my feelings on Mr. Short.
It can be a lot. His shtick can be a lot, and there isn't that much of it in this. There isn't that much of it. He does the little dance move a couple times in this, but not a ton.
Oh yeah, I saw that at the big fiesta when he's basically doing the Ed Grimley dance almost. Yeah, it doesn't have the hand up in front of his head like he would do.
Yeah. Anyway.
It was Nathan Thurman. There we go. And that was another great one. It was the whole thing with the Menkman brothers, the Billy Crystal and Christopher Guest playing the two brothers that make faulty novelty items. And Nathan Thurman is their is their lawyer. And he's that was great. Well, you could get this isn't Martin Short, but the two guys where they're like, you could get an unglazed dribble glass. You get 40 stitches in your neck, instant lawsuit, in your lip, instant lawsuit. It's so good. Yeah. This is definitely a step up from Pure Luck and what was the other one? Three Fugitives.
Fugitives. It is a massive step up from those.
Oh, yeah.
movies. But those movies came after this one.
Yeah. Check out Inner Space. Check out Captain Ron is actually pretty funny.
I've seen Captain Ron.
Yeah.
Long time. That the Kurt Russell vehicle?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the prequel to Escape from New York.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, Martin Short's good in Jungle to Jungle. I mean, that movie, I think, is broadly bizarre and strange and makes very little sense. But hey, you got Tim Allen at the height of his power, just going like, just put me in things. As long as you don't send me back to jail for cocaine.
I've never seen Clifford, but
I've heard that's good.
The clips I've seen have been pretty hysterical.
So maybe when we're done with the Chevy Chase cast, we'll do the Short Martin cast.
Mm-hmm. Steve Martin cast, maybe.
Steve Martin cast. I could probably do, though. I don't know. I've never seen The Lonely Guy or LA Story. I've been always meaning to. So
LA Story is an interesting one. LA Story is Dead Men Wear Plaid or Pennies from Heaven.
Plaid. Yeah. Or Grand Canyon. That almost a follow up to The Big Chill.
Yeah. Let's not
Anything
make
else
further plans just yet.
Let's try to get through this.
You know what they say? You know what they say? By the end of 2025, we may not be allowed to do this anymore, anyways. So it doesn't matter.
Because we're halfway through this whole filmography. I think, or not whole filmography. Sorry, but what we're planning on doing, we are about halfway.
Don't make promises for people on that one, Mike.
Yeah, actually, we might be a little less than No, we're right about there. Okay, yeah, because there's 25 on our list, and we are at number 14 right now.
Yeah, so we don't have much. We can start making plans right now, Begley. It's just 2026.
Yeah, we'll be doing this until April 2026. So
we got a little bit. We got a little bit of time left, and I don't know at what point, unless we've already reached it, that we are going to have peaked. But there's a high possibility that the peak has already come and gone, and we just don't realize it yet. So
Christmas Vacation might be the peak. I don't know.
Fletch for me was kind of, and always will be, the peak of peaks, but Christmas Vacation might be the secondary peak, as it were. But that's not what we're talking about on the next episode of the Chasing Chevy Chase podcast. We're going to be talking about 1988's Funny Farm, a movie, a fish out of water story, folks. That's what it is. Get excited. Chevy Chase and his wife moved to a farm.
Is it Funny Farm?
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Or do funny things happen?
Funny things happen.
Chevy Chase eats a lot of balls, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So until then, where can people find you and your collected works, Mark Begley?
You can find my two shows, Wake Up Heavy and Cambridge and Sean, over on weirdingwaymedia.com or wherever you find your finer podcasts.
Same question to you, Mr. Mike White.
You can find all of the books that I've written over at lulu.com. So go over there and search for Mike White, and you'll find all of the episodes of Cashiers to Cinemark that are available via Lulu, and possibly Funky, a Cashiers to Cinemark collection. You'll be able to find some of the other stuff that I've done. Cinema Detours, where it's all movie reviews, which inadvertently led to the podcast, The Projection Booth, which some folks might have heard of, and which is also available at weirdingwaymedia.com. How about you, Chris?
Wow, now I know why we're all here, kind of, in a way. Just think, Mike, when you were writing those, you're like, many moons from now, I'll be sitting and talking about Three Amigos with two of my amigos. You can find all my... C. You can find everything that I work on over at weirdingwaymedia.com, which is the network that Mike and I started together, and we had a good time inviting all of our friends, like our dear friend Mark Begley here, to join us to put out some great content, have a good time, give everybody a little bit of an audio diversion from the reality and the oppressive nature that is real life. So if you want to check out some fun things to keep you occupied as the world spins out of control, weirdingwaymedia.com is where you can do it. And please like, rate, and review anything and everything you listen to, regardless of what it is, because that helps content creators out. But, if you do it with us first, we'd really appreciate it. Like, rate, and review this show on iTunes, which is more than likely where you're getting it and listening to it. And yeah, the next time you hear the three of our voices, we'll be talking about 1988's Funny Farm.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.